The Giants signed Justin Verlander. That's right. We're going to talk about it. I believe Ned Colletti may join us. I definitely want to hear your thoughts. I have a bunch of thoughts. Let's go. It's the Krug Show. We haven't talked Giants baseball in a while, but a little fired up about this one for sure. So let's go right here. The Krug Show, Giant style, go. All right, welcome to the Krug Show, 4:45 on January the 7th. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, along the Monterey Peninsula. If you need cards or collectibles, call my friend Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. And we are brought to you, as you can see right here, there, look at that, top of the screen. Mancini Sleep World is a proud sponsor of the Krug Show, if I could say it. Mancini's offers a 120-night guarantee with a range of brands and price points. And Mancini's, with them, you get free next day delivery. I'm loving my Mancini's bed. My wife and I have a fantastic Mancini's bed. It's incredible. High profile, very, very comfortable. Click the link below or go to sleepworld.com and find a bed that works for you, whether you shop online or visit in any of their stores. All you got to do is use the code KRUG10 and you'll get 10% off. Once again, that's KRUG10, K-R-U-E-G 10, and you'll get 10% off at any of Mancini's store or online at sleepworld.com. And thanks to Mancini's for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right. Why are we coming at you randomly at 4:45 when we're coming up at 6 o'clock on KMBR to talk Niners on Niners Nightly? Well, we're going to talk baseball when stuff really happens. And Justin Verlander has agreed to a one-year deal with the Giants. It's a one-year deal for $15 million. And he's a Hall of Famer. He's 42. And now he's coming to pitch in a very pitching-friendly stadium. He'll be entering his 20th Major League season. He's one of, 3 or 4 of the best pitchers that of his generation. He's a durable workhorse innings eater, at least has been throughout most of his career. He's got the most innings pitched, the most strikeouts, and the most wins among active players. So he's a 3-time Cy Young Award winner. I believe he's 3 years removed from his last Cy Young. He's coming off the worst season of his MLB career, and he joins a Giants team that is looking to, bounce back. And they've, the thing about the Giants is they've got they're at a point now where they've got to start leaning on their farm system. I mean, the Giants can't go and have a quick fix. I mean, if they could get Roki Sasaki in the next couple of weeks, that would be incredible. Absolutely incredible. But when you look at the Giants rotation, first of all, you got to put Jordan Hicks back in the bullpen. Jordan Hicks, forget this, take a guy who throws 99 and is overpowering and make him throw 92 and tire out in July. Sorry, the Jordan Hicks to the rotation plan does not work. But guess what? There's bad news and good news. The bad news is he can't be a starter. The good news is if you shorten him up, put him back in the pen, he could be an incredible 8th inning guy. Jordan Hicks to me is in the bullpen. Logan Webb's a relatively young pitcher. Kyle Harrison's a young pitcher. Keaton Wynn's a young pitcher. There's no question that Hayden Birdsong is a young pitcher. Mason Black is a young pitcher. They're going to eventually call up the lefty Carson Whisenhunt, who's got the Bugs Bunny changeup. He's a young pitcher. What do I want from my young pitchers? And this is where I love having Buster. It's like you want a roster that makes sense. Farhan, his roster was just anybody he could get. He had no pull in the industry. He was not very popular. He didn't want to get pull. He didn't want to pay top dollar for the most part. But he just, he had no philosophy. That's why he never verbalized a direction, because he didn't have a philosophy. He was just trying to get whoever he could get. That's really it. And I don't think there ever really was any kind of sensible plan. This makes sense. This makes, in my opinion, this makes more sense than Corbin Burns for massive money long term. One, those massive money long term deals never seem to work out. Second of all, are the Giants a Corbin Burns away from winning anything? No. So why do that? Why do that? And then you do have some young pitchers coming up through your system. Lean on that. Lean on that and get, if you, I was thinking, the guy that I was thinking was Charlie Morton. And he signed the other day for the same kind of a deal, like a 1 year, $15 million deal, something like that. That's what I was thinking. Charlie Morton, a veteran arm who's got a killer curveball. He still really knows how to pitch, smart guy. That would have been ideal. Going for Verlander, I think in this spot makes sense. Now, he's not coming off a great year. We can take a look at, he was 5-6 with a 5.48 ERA, 74 strikeouts. 5-6. He had 17 starts on the year. 17 starts. He pitched 90 innings, gave up 98 hits, and struck out 74. The league hit 274 off him. So, and just looking at it, he was much better on the road than he was at home. At home, he had a 7.98 ERA. On the road, he had a 4.28 ERA. So, as far as what hitters hit off him, he's way more effective against left-handed hitters than right-handed hitters. At least he was last year. Last year, righties hit 303 with a 361 on base. And in today's modern game, where batting averages are all down, all those numbers are deflated. 303 is just getting ripped. That means right-handed hitters just tore him up last year. He gave up 54 hits in 178 at-bats and 5 home runs. Now, lefties only hit 244. So he was better against lefties, though he did give up twice as many home runs against lefties. He gave up 10 home runs against lefties. If you look at him by month, that's kind of interesting. He had 2 starts in April and got off to a real hot start. He had a 1.74 ERA in April. In May, he had he was 2-2 in 6 starts in May, and he had a 3.68 ERA. June, his ERA ballooned to 7.20, and he only pitched 2 starts in June. Didn't pitch in July. Came back in August and had a 5.40 ERA in August and a 9.26 ERA in September. Now, this is the part that's a little frustrating if you're a Giants fan. And I'm just going to say this the way it is. I have great respect for a lot of these players that come through here, but why is it that the Giants always have to be everybody's dumping ground? Why is it that every player seems like has got to pitch their final year for the Giants? I mean, going back my entire lifetime, I've seen this. Steve Carlton. Did you know that Steve Carlton pitched? Yeah, at the end with the Giants. Randy Johnson. Did you know Randy Johnson? Yes, at the end with the Giants. Eric Davis was a Giant. Yes, at the end. At the very end. Al Oliver had a great career. He hit with the Pirates. Almost said Steelers. He hit with the Pirates. He hit with the Expos. He had, he was an incredible offensive player. If the Giants, no power, no home runs. He played his final year, I believe, with the Giants. Why is it the Giants always get these guys at the very end? The very, very end. It's almost like the agents know, hey, you want one last paycheck, parting gifts, you're to set you up for retirement, one last contract. Oh yeah, the Giants will give it to you every time. Every time. And that part I don't like. While the Dodgers are, going after premier guys, the Giants are ushering, once proud players. Dave Righetti was a Giant at the end. Dusty Baker was a Giant at the end. Dan Dreesen was a Giant at the end. I mean, just so many different players that I can think of who were great, but they were Giants. Joe Carter was a Giant at the end. Andres Galarraga was a Giant at the end. I'm sure Giants fans can. Darryl Strawberry was a Giant at the end. So, I mean, it's always, they're always, Vita Blue, my buddy, Vita Blue. I love Vita. I loved him. Vita, if you're up there, I love you, brother. At the end, Oral Hershiser at the end. Steven Saunders says Randy did win number 300 with the Giants. Yeah, and guess what? Verlander is probably going to win number 300 with the Giants as well. You're going to see Verlander probably win 300. I think he's 38 away. Probably won't be this year, but if he pitched, it's a 1-year deal. But let's just say he pitches well here, has a good year, and why wouldn't he pitch well here? You've got a Gold Glove catcher. You've got a great yard. I don't know how many games he'll win though with this lack of offense, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm still holding out hope on the polar bear coming here. But you know what? That's the one bummer, is that it seems like the Giants always get these guys at the end. And you just kind of like, it's great. Dave Rigetti, but he's at the very end. Tim Hudson. Got this one. Tim Hudson. Yeah, but he's at the end. He was at the end. Edgar Renteria at least had one last home run in him. So he was almost at the very end. Real Deal Sports says, no, Larry. Verlander is only a year removed from a 3.31 ERA, 2 years removed from being an all-star. Yeah, 3 years removed from being a Cy Young, if you want to play that game. So yeah. And he says, so this is a good thing. No, I'm not. I like it. I'm not saying I don't like it. I do like it. Why? Because I just tweeted out last week about how it makes no sense to sign Corbin Burnes for massive money long term. It just doesn't. I mean, his numbers were already starting to backslide. Almost everybody who signs those big money deals to pitchers ruse the day they did it. And within like 3 years of signing the contract, they're trying to pay the contract off just to get rid of the guy. So those deals don't work out. I think history has told us that. It doesn't have to be like Mike Hampton. That was the one that comes to mind, or Kevin Brown. But for the most part, all of those big money deals to pitchers, for the most part, don't work out. So, that's all I can really say about that. Okay, so Ned is telling me he's ready when, I'll say ready now, Ned. So Ned Colletti is going to join us, former Giants assistant GM, former Dodger GM, and I sent him the link, and he's going to jump in. We'll get his perspective on Verlander. But I like it from the Giants' perspective, because if you look at the Giants roster, they have some good young pitching. Hayden Birdsong's 23. He's a 23-year-old guy with a great arm. Mason Black is 25. Kyle Harrison is 23 with the world ahead of him. Sean Jelly is a interesting righty. He's only 27. They've got some arms coming up. This guy that they have coming into spring training, they got in the deal for who's the guy that they traded? They got Carson Ragsdale, who's 6'8", another 6'8" guy with throws smoke. I forget who they got him for. They got him in that trade. Now I'm zoning on the guy that I forget. But anyway, Carson Ragsdale's got a really good arm. And then you're going to have Robbie Ray. And you've got some guys with some good arms. I mean, to me, if you put Hicks in the bullpen, you got, obviously now you got Logan Webb, you got Verlander, you got Birdsong, you got Harrison if he's healthy. And, maybe it's Carson Wisenhunt time. I mean, to me, when you're that nasty with the fastball and the curveball, you're not very far away. So you put a super nasty lefty like Carson Wisenhunt in this rotation, you got some dudes. I think it's good enough. It's good enough to compete if you can score some runs. And that's where the Giants lose, because they can't score runs. They got Bailey behind the plate. They got nothing at first. They got Chapman and Adames on the left side of the infield, but the right side of the infield is very much a question mark. Is Luciano playing second? Is Fitzgerald playing second? Is Casey Schmidt playing second? Are they going to go get Hassan Kim to play second? Who's going to play second? Brett Wisely? Who's playing second for the Giants? And then who's going to play first? Who's on the right side of the diamond? I don't want to. To me, I don't want to see Lamont Wade for another year. And not that he was horrible, but he just, I mean, there's no real power threat there. To me, Alonso would be perfect. You get Alonso, he's got huge power. There would be all kinds of energy in the yard. People would be wearing those polar bear hats left and right. Man, if you put Alonso at first, I think that's really nice. Then you're an outfielder away from competing. And you got Ramos and Jung Hoo sitting there. All right, we welcome in Ned Colletti, former Giants assistant GM and former Dodger general manager, and Real Deal Sports says this is a good thing, the Verlander thing. First glance, Ned, what do you think? Verlander to the Giants, the specifics, I don't know if you saw it, but the specifics are it's a 1-year deal for $15 million.
Well, I think it's probably got two benefits to San Francisco. One, you're getting a starting pitcher. Is he going to be the Verlander of 3, 4, 5, 15 years ago? Probably not. But is he gonna pitch? Yeah. And is he going to help your young players? That, I think, is one of the most valuable pieces to this. I think when you have somebody that's going to the Hall of Fame that has competed the way he has competed and has had the career that he's had, anytime your young players, whether they're pitchers or position players, starting pitchers or relief pitchers, I think they learn from people like this. And I think as you think about Buster and his career and a Hall of Famer and Verlander in the same path, they'll be teammates one day in Cooperstown. I think it's got value in that way too. How many innings is he going to pitch? Don't know. He had a rough finish to the season. He's been through a lot of different injuries. I think neck is one of them, and a couple other things. But the compete of the player is as strong as anybody's. So I think part of this deal will also be the value of having him with a younger staff.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, if you think Giants went after Corbin Burns, obviously they didn't want to go and finish that deal. I don't necessarily fault them for it. Not that Corbin Burns is not a spectacular pitcher, but over the life of the deal, I don't know that any of those big money, super long-term deals work out. And I really don't like him with a second-year opt-out. To me, just when you throw in the second-year opt-out, it's just like guaranteeing that you're going to lose the deal. I mean, I'll take a risk, but you might see me in a casino, and I'll wager on a sporting contest or two. I'll take a risk, but I don't like it. When my odds are 100%, I'm going to lose. I don't like taking those risks, and that's what the second-year option feels like.
You're right. The club is on line. If he blows out, the club is on the line for the duration. So. Right. The only way that the club is really on the line for the duration is if he's ineffective. So you've lost.
It's like Ned. It's my old buddy, the football coach, used to say it's like a ham and egg breakfast. The chicken was involved. The pig was committed. The chicken was involved. The pig was committed. The club's committed. The players involved. I'd like to see a little bit more of a less. I don't need the club to be committed like that.
No, I did it once with Zach Greinke. I gave him a 6-year deal, 3-year out. And that was a different dynamic a little bit. It was probably the only way we were going to sign him. He had an offer from Texas that doesn't have any state tax. California's obviously got a state tax from what I know. And so, there was a big money difference for him, plus going to a place that he didn't know. So we gave him an out after 3 years, and he was great. I think he was 51-15, and then he left, ironically, for Arizona. But he was also at a different point in his career, and I thought that the next 3 years may be his best 3 years. So if you want to leave after 3, I'll let you do it, because we're going to end up getting really probably 3 great years, and we did. I think he was a runner-up in the Cy Young one of those years, but. Anyway, I think that the Giants did well to give Verlander, again, how much is he going to contribute in conversation versus how much he's going to contribute on the mound. I think it might be 50-50.
When you go to spring training, and I've always wondered this, and I know it's different for different teams in different years, but how many how many viable starting pitchers do you want going into spring training? I mean, and I asked it. I mean, obviously you could have a million, you'd want a million, but But I mean, what's a realistic number? Was there a number you would point to? Because I'm looking at the Giants: Tristan Beck, Hayden Birdsong, Mason Black, Kyle Harrison. I think Hicks is going to be in the pen, but Sean Jelly, I think, might be in the rotation. That's 5. None of those guys are great, I realize. Robbie Ray is 6. Um, Logan Webb is 7. Verlander's 8. And obviously they've got a couple of the guys. Carson Wisnhunt is a young arm that they really like. That would be 9. How many do you want? 10? You want 15? You want 20? What's a good number for you as far as viable starting pitchers that are in your camp?
Well, rather than give you a number, I'll give you a little bit of a math equation.
Okay.
You need 162 starts. Let's forget about the opener for a minute. You're going to go at legitimate starting pitching, let's say for 162 games. The first 5 names you rattled off there, younger pitchers or
Right.
people that haven't thrown 180 plus innings. So realistically, and it's important that you're realistic with what your expectation is for any young pitcher, any pitcher that doesn't have the Verlander or the Webb career going back, or the Robbie Ray career when healthy. So you got to kind of map that out. Can I expect 12 starts out of this pitcher? Can I expect 12 out of this pitcher? You kind of cobble it together that way. And as you see that, then you also have to figure that at some point in time, and you don't know who and you don't know when, but somebody's going to break. Somebody's going to need to go on the IL. So you're going to have to probably figure out if you can do it with 6. If you get to 162 games with 6, you're probably going to need another couple to get you through it. Because not only with young pitching do you not necessarily know what you're going to get game by game, but the longer that season goes, the tougher it gets. It is tough to compete, not to compete, but it's tough to endure a season of that length when you haven't really done it before, with the expectation that you're out there every 5th or 6th day. So I think you gotta do the math first to figure out realistically how many starts can you get out of Webb, how many can you get out of Ray, how many are you going to get out of Justin, how many are you going to get out of the younger guys, and cobble it together that way, put it together, and then know that you're going to have 1 or 2 of those guys, hopefully less, but maybe even more, that are going to miss some time from time to time.
Yeah. He's got a curveball, a changeup, a 4-seamer, a slider. When I say Verlander, I mean, he's a great competitor. He's kept himself in pretty good shape. What stands out to you about him as an arm?
Well, his stuff is probably diminished to some extent.
Sure.
But again, he's one of those guys that, I traded for Greg Maddux twice. And the last year of his career was 2008. And, I knew Greg since the day we drafted him in Chicago. So I knew the character. I knew the genius behind the pitching. And I traded for him the second time with my dear friend, the late Kevin Towers, knowing that I wasn't going to get, a tremendous performance going forward, but I was going to get the mind, and I was going to get him sitting next to a guy named Clayton Kershaw, who was a kid. So the stuff was less. But guys like Maddux, guys like Verlander, they know how to pitch. It's not just throwing to them, it's pitching to them. Greg won, I don't know how many games he won his last year. It was in double digits. And he was probably throwing 84, 85 miles an hour at the utmost. But he knew how to pitch. When I think about Justin Verlander today, I know 2 things. I know he competes to the utmost, and I know he knows how to pitch. So if he's lost a couple miles here and there, or he can't, he's going to throw harder in the 1st than he will in the 5th or the 6th, and harder in April and May than he will in August and September. That doesn't mean that it's a fool's errand. It means that he's going to have to adjust, and he's already probably done that for a few years. And I think that's got value, because whether you know it or not, as a young pitcher, if you're going to play in the big leagues for a while, there's going to be an adjustment you're going to have to make. Clayton's made one the last 2-3 years. And so watching somebody do it in front of you, instead of having, somebody talk to you about it, or just have conversation, I think has got value. So when I think of him, I think of a great career, a Hall of Fame career, one of the great competitors of all time. and I think he's going to probably teach guys how to pitch, maybe with stuff that's not as sharp or is not as high velo as it once was. That's human nature. That's life. But he knows what he's doing, and he'll compete to the utmost.
He'll be 42. In his 39 season, this was 2022. He went 18-4 with a
Yes.
1.75 ERA, 28
Yes.
starts. He won the Cy Young. Was an All-Star and finished 10th in the league MVP voting. How much do you think a guy like this understands? Hey, look, my stuff is diminishing a little bit. I had a 5.48 ERA. That's the highest ERA he's ever had in his entire career. Going back to his rookie year. His rookie year, he had a 7.15 ERA. The 5.48 was the highest ERA he's had. Do you think a guy like that says, you know what? I know San Francisco, is a much better pitching yard than Houston.
Oh, no doubt.
Let me go there for a year. I mean, you brought in Oral Hershiser. You and Brian brought in Oral Hershiser to that 1998 Giant team.
Yes.
And another guy, future Hall of Famer. Stuff wasn't the same, but man, I thought Oral was a very good Giant and had pitched a number of really good games
and taught guys along the way. So I think that there's going to be great benefits to this, and not all of them is going to be in the ERA or the hits per inning or different metrics that people look at. I think it's going to be in what he does and how he does it. And 18-4 wasn't that long ago. Now, as you get to that 40 age group, things go a little bit quicker for you, and it doesn't quite happen as the chances of it happening again are slim. But is he going to be able to teach? I don't have any doubt. And I, not knowing what Buster's conversations were with him and vice versa, there's a good chance that there's a great mutual respect between these two players. And Buster probably explained what he needs besides the innings, the innings pitched and everything else that he's got. So there's no doubt in my mind that those conversations were had.
Ned, Buster, and you've done this job that he's in, and he's in there with Zach Manasian. Yep. Do you know Zach, by the way, that well? I know he's been a baseball guy forever. His dad was a clubby, right? And he was the clubby.
I knew his grandfather, believe it or not.
Okay, so he's a baseball guy, and his brother is as well. His brother's
the
Angel, was in with the Angels. Do you know anything about Manasian that you could share with us? I mean, he was in Milwaukee. He also, I think, may have acquired Greinke somewhere in there. CC Sabathia and some others. Does he have a reputation in any way around the game?
I think he's got a lot of respect through the game. I think people understand that he's paid his dues, that he looks at the game through a lot of different lenses. It's not just one way or the other. I think he's somebody that gathers as much information as he can, which I think is a great sign of leadership. In baseball, you've got analytics, you've got old time scouting type of thing. So, I think he looks at everything, and I think his record has been really good, and he knows how to build, he knows how to acquire. So I think it's a good choice for them. And I know, one of his right-hand guys is one of my dear friends, Jeremy Shelley, who I think is one of the best baseball executives going. His reliability, his memory, his ability to really think and produce and execute. When you've got him sitting next to you, that's a huge plus too. So I think the front office is in a good spot. And I've said this maybe on your show or on other shows, and I was in San Francisco when it wasn't a destination. Okay. In the 95 and 96 season, my first 2 years there, Candlestick Park was still home. It was not a destination, and then it became a destination. I think the Giants, it needs to be a destination again. I don't know if it is, but I do know that it's certainly got the all what you need to be a destination. And when that starts to happen, and your development system starts to kick in, and your drafts and your international signs start to bear fruit, now suddenly you're going to be able to compete with anybody and everybody.
Does this move or a move like this, I know Verlander's an older pitcher, but he is a big name pitcher, and he does have a presence. And as you said, if I were a young pitcher, I'd want to be on a team that had a Justin Verlander. I'm not saying it would be the end all be all, but I would like to be on that team. The question is Roki Sasaki like me? Is this move in any way impact, you think, the pursuit of Sasaki Do you think? I mean, I don't know anything about Sasaki other than what I've seen, but I'll tell you what I have seen. He is spectacular. I mean, I won't even say that he's good or very good. I think he could be the best. I mean, he looks really, really amazing. What is he? You're a baseball guy. You've seen many more arms than I have. What do you see with Roki Sasaki?
Well, I think he's going to need a little bit of work, and he's going to need a little bit of endurance and to build up. I mean, he's young, but he's got um, all the stuff to be really, really good and in a competitive place. I mean, he takes everything to the highest degree as a young person, as a young pitcher. So, I would be, you mentioned going to the casino. I guess if I was going to the casino on this side,
Bet on the Dodgers.
I'd give you the field, and I would take LA with about 70%, maybe 80%. But
Where's
you
Bowie
never know.
Kuhn? Where's Bowie Kuhn when you need him to just come in here and just say, no, no, this can't go
I
down?
thought Otani was coming to LA the first time too, and I had
So you've been
broached,
wrong before, in other words.
yeah, I had broached with trying to get him to come from Japan as an 18-year-old, and he wasn't going to do it. Tradition and custom is that you're going to pitch there first, and then I was doing TV by the time he went to Anaheim, and I just stopped doing TV when he went to LA a year ago. So I've been wrong before, but all the way that they've approached this offseason and the way that they have approached everything. I mean, they won, I think, 12 straight or 12 out of 13 divisions or been to the playoffs. I had the first two, 13 and 14. That's a long time ago now. And they haven't not been to the playoffs since. And
We've
I
been
think
here for it.
I
We've
think
we
that
we
they're
we've
better.
witnessed it.
I think that they're better than they've ever been. I don't think it even resembles the
Oh, I
last
mean, the
12,
momentum that they
10,
have right
15
now
years.
is extraordinary.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
So
And the
I
money
don't
that
know.
they
Listen,
have,
to answer your question, I don't think this will have any impact on what
you
he's
know,
going to do. I bet he
yeah.
already knows what he's going to do. He's just being respectful of the process and waiting for the window.
What who do you know who met with him as far as LA? I know Friedman described we're going to do everything in our
Yeah.
power to get it done. I'm sure Buster's trying to get it done. I'll say this, I think it would be better for baseball if he were a Giant. I mean, we know the Dodgers are going to win 100. I looked at the Vegas over under total the other day on the Dodgers. It's 104 wins. I've never seen a Vegas total at 104 wins.
I might
I
take
mean,
the over, but
yeah, I mean, I would too. I would too. But I mean, and super teams are great. Dynasties are great. But the Niners were more interesting in the 90s because of the Cowboys. And I think you could argue that the Giants, and if it came to the Giants and it was Roki against Yamamoto, and here
no
comes
doubt.
Otani. I mean, to me, that's better theater than they're all on LA dominating and they won 110.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think he'll probably go to LA. But in something like that, Ned, what would be your pitch? Because it's not about your bonus pool, right? We're not even going to pretend. Does the agent even pretend it's about, yeah, you have 7 million and they have 5 million? No, at the end of the day, that's bird feed compared to the big decision of what market do you want to be in? Where do you want to market yourself?
Yeah.
How do you think that's going to play out?
Well, I think that, it's a guess. It's a simple guess. I think really success of franchise, comfort level, how comfortable is he with the environment that is established with the people who are there. I think that will play into it because obviously he's got the choice of any team in the game because the money's going to be relatively the same. So I think a lot of that is going to be what how he feels about it. I know even in my days, we set up a system, and I'm sure it's greatly enhanced now to really be able to attract players from Asia or from Latin America with how we did things and how we set things up and how we had people there who could make sure that the player could concentrate on the sport and not have to worry about where they were going to live, if they had a family, where they were going to go to school. All those things we had wired, we had taken care of. On and on, you name it, we took away every issue that somebody coming from another country who may or may not speak English would be able to really adjust to and thrive in it. I told many of the guys that we signed from Asia, I said, I want this to be the best experience of your life. I want you to come here, and it's not just about pitching or about hitting. It's about the experience that you and your family experience in Los Angeles. And we signed a handful of really good players. Hyunjin Ryu, from Korea,
Yeah.
Kuroda from Japan, Saito from Japan, on and on. Hyunjin Kuo, a lot of different players. And before I got there, other one, Chan Ho Park, one of the best, Hideo Nomo, one of the best. But as we got into that market, we put together an organization that would be very comfortable for somebody. And I'm sure, as I said, I'm sure it's enhanced more now than when I was there. So I'm sure that they will put everything they can into it. There's a couple other things too, if I may just go for a
Sure.
second here with
Please.
it. What the Dodgers have done, and it's tough to compete with. What they have done is, you asked me, how many starting pitchers do you need? Okay,
Right. To get through a
look,
season.
look how many they have. So what they've done is, none of their position players carry the team. They have so many good position players. It falls to the team, not to the individual, not to just Soto and Judge, for example, going back to October. The pitching. If you're a young pitcher, if you're a Yamamoto who hasn't pitched every fifth day, who hasn't pitched at the volume, or with the expectation is probably the same, but it is the big leagues, right? So you have a chance to blend in more and not have it fall on you. The spotlight is going to be on Corbin Burnes. There's no doubt in Arizona. The spotlight sits with him, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. And so as you think about being a free agent and going to a place that's set up to win and is a comfortable environment, and all you have to do is not exceed the expectation, but meet the expectation, which might be a little bit lower than almost any other place. That, to me, I think, is also inviting. And they're a patient group. That organization, they play for October. They know they got to pay respect to April to end of September, but they plan everything. They don't rush anybody back who's dinged up. Nobody comes back early. Nobody has to make this start today because we're teetering on falling out of the playoff race. That ain't them. So as you're a player and you're thinking about coming to a new country and a new league, those types of things, I think, would be invaluable to be able to talk about.
Well,
I think
and
it's huge.
I'll tell you the other thing that is it happened this year is that Blake Snell openly complained to the media that the Giants were trying to rush him back.
Well, there you go.
And something like that, I'm sure, gets noticed by players.
Well, the players always talking. Everybody knows. Everybody knows what everybody's thinking, type of thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's a key thing. And most teams, I don't blame the Giants. I mean, that's where they were at. They were trying to win as many games as they could, going against the behemoth down south. But the Dodgers don't. You won't hear that. You won't ever hear that. They rushed me back. They made me pitch early. I wasn't ready to do this. I wasn't ready to do that. They don't. And by virtue of having all the depth that they have, nobody gets overused.
Right. And
How
that's a
many
big
pitchers?
concern. That's a big concern, man. If your body is your livelihood, overuse could cost you tens of millions of dollars.
As good as Justin Verlander has been, and he's remarkable. I mean, truly remarkable. One of the greatest, maybe arguably the greatest pitcher of the last 20 years. Okay, certainly in the conversation in the top 2 or 3, if not the number 1.
Hall of Famer.
In his heart of hearts, when he got to the end of September and a playoff was looming, had he pitched as much as he could pitch to get there? Or did he have another 25, 30 innings in the tank of high-end talent?
He paced himself, probably.
Maybe, but almost everybody is expended when you get to Labor Day and beyond. I mean, it's going to be less innings. It's going to be less pitches. the Dodgers don't. When's the last time you saw, not an opener, but a starting pitcher pitch for LA in October that was, on a pitch count or was only going to, we better get him out of there because he's been overused this year. He's pitched more than he's ever pitched. You don't see it very often with that group.
Having veterans in a sport like baseball where there's so much downtime. I remember you and I used to have conversations about, you were talking about, hey, the men in the room actually matter. And this is when you guys were picking up guys like Joe Carter and Andres Galarraga and some of these guys that were significant clubhouse presences back in the 90s to compete any number of those years. 98 comes to mind. But you guys were in it in 90, won it in 97. We're in it in 98, 99. Virtually every year you were here. But I mean, being able to add a person like this to the room definitely gives the club a different feel. I mean, and I don't know. Seems like I don't want to say the Giants under the Farhan regime were afraid of this kind of player, but I don't know. They just didn't have as many big personalities in the room.
I think it's a great point. And when somebody walks in that room that everybody knows who it is and they know what's on the back of the baseball card, it makes a difference. I can remember being in Colorado, and it may have been, I'm not sure what year we got Andres, maybe 2000. And I was I was with the club. Saves was back in San Francisco, and we were scuffling a little bit. And he says, I just talked to Doug Melvin in Texas, and we can get Galarraga. What do you think? I says, I do it in a heartbeat. We need to have somebody walk in this room that people know who this is, and they know the track record, and they know the character of the person. And sure enough, next day here comes the deal, and the next day here he's walking in the Coors Field, I think, and it was like, now we got it. Ellis Burks, same thing. People knew Ellis Burks. Said, whoa, these guys are serious. Same thing. It's not the middle of the season, but when you get to Scottsdale and you assemble your group, and Bob Melvin and his staff's looking around that room, and you got a guy like Verlander sitting in there, sitting next to Webb or sitting next to some of the young guys and having conversations, you feel better. You feel better because you got people that aren't trying to figure it out. They've figured it out. Now they're going to try to figure out how to prolong it, but they've already kind of figured out. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the Hall of Fame numbers that they've got.
One last one, and we appreciate you jumping in here. But it's LA is so far out there that there's no way, and Arizona is now that they've added Corbin Burns and all the talent they have, they look really incredible, and the Padres are very, very talented. So the Giants almost look like they're stamped into that bottom of the division kind of area. But there is some talk that they're interested in Pete Alonso. And if you put Alonso at first and Chapman and Adames on the left side, and you got Bailey behind the plate, if your pitching worked out, I mean, you still have Jung-Hoo and Ramos in the outfield, maybe some younger players coming up. They kind of like they like Matos, they like McCray, Meckler. We'll see. I don't know if I believe in any of those guys. I kind of like Matos. He just won the MVP, I believe, or he was Rookie of the Year of the Dominican Winter League.
Yep.
So, or the Venezuelan Winter League, I should say. He played in Venezuela. He's Venezuelan. They've got some ifs there, but if they could land a big bat like an Alonso, especially if Eldridge at some point came up, that's a lot of ifs, Ned. But what do you think of Pete Alonso as a player? I think he would add a ton, with those polar bear hats and that whole, the way the Pablo hats and the giraffe hats were belt sold. I think the hats alone on the polar bear hats would probably pay for the guy's contract. To me, it makes a lot of sense. Other people are not as hot to trot on Alonso. What do you think?
Well, I'm not sure that. I don't know how many hats they'd have to sell to pay for the contract. I think
a lot.
They'd be very expensive hats.
Very expensive hats.
Very expensive hats. But I think he does add to your club, adds to your lineup. I think anytime you can add somebody that's going to, whether it's in your rotation, in your bullpen, or in your lineup, that makes people move, that pushes people down in your lineup. I think that's a key thing, and he would definitely do that. And he's got great power. It's not obviously a home run hitting ballpark unless you're Barry Bonds back in the day or a Jeff Kent, but it's he can change a game, and he also changes the rest of your lineup. Guys like that change your lineup. Shortstop's going to change the lineup. Your third baseman coming back is going to change your lineup. You may get one of those younger players that has a good year, and that changes your lineup. You're always looking to improve it any way you can. It'd be a big sign for him, whether or not he wants to get out of New York or whether or not New York wants to even entertain it. We'll wait and see. It's not late. It's not early in the free agent market, but it's not necessarily late either. You still, you get to NFC, AFC championship weekend. Then it's getting a little late. You get to halftime at the Super Bowl. Now it's late.
Right.
And then
I mean, they report in like February 24th or something, don't they? I mean, it's an early reporting date. Spring training used to be kind of a March thing. It's now these guys probably go down there in the beginning of February and start working out, most of them.
Yeah.
It is a night. I mean, for most if you're a baseball player, I guess most of them live in Arizona or Florida. Isn't that pretty much it?
I would say many. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you know, like when you were talking to a free agent, did you know if they lived in Arizona? And then knew, because I mean, you'd have a much better chance of signing them if they lived in Arizona, right?
No doubt, because they're away from their families a lot as it is. Now you got 6 weeks, 7 weeks where you're going to be home.
Right. That's a lot.
That's a benefit. That's a benefit. Yeah. I mean, we kind of knew what their mindset would be. And I could tell really I would always obviously talk to the agent, but I'd ask to talk to the player. And whether I was in San Francisco or in LA, so what does your family think about moving west? I know where you're from, you're probably, you got roots there going back to high school or college or, what do you think? And I could almost tell by their answer if they were excited about it or if they were hesitant about it. I almost knew, like within about 10, 15 minutes. I won't tell you the player, but I had one player who had huge interest. And, I talked about his family and I said, so, you're from this small town in Georgia. And you married your high school sweetheart? Yeah. Uh-huh. How do you guys feel about traffic? How do you feel about living 6-7 miles away from the ballpark, but it might be an hour and a half? And he didn't say anything for about 10 seconds. And I wrote on my notes, I said, he ain't coming. He's out. He ain't coming here.
Put a line through him. He's not coming here.
That's it.
Oh, that is awesome. That's incredible. And we talked about it before. I don't think the fans realize there are just people that just, I live west, you live west, but there's a lot of people that, they are just not open to living in the western half of the country. As far as they're concerned, that's just far away. They're, if you're an East Coast person, man, you feel like out of the game and out of, way out, I'm not sure why, but I mean, there's people that just refuse to live east of the Mississippi or west of the Mississippi.
I never thought I'd live in California ever. And I think I just hit the 30-year mark.
Right.
So, you never know, but it is different. I've obviously grew up in Chicago. I've lived in Philly. I've lived east. I've lived west. I've lived southwest. They're all different. And they all have something that you have to adjust to, but they all have something good to offer. But I think it is, I found it, and this is a generality, I found it harder to convince an East Coast player to come west or a player from Latin America to come west than somebody who grew up in the central part of the country or in the West. It's just, it takes more conversation and their experiences, and they have to have a bit of adventure to them. They have to have a little bit of an adventurous spirit to come west. It's
especially if they're not used to it. So I mean, a different time zone, or if you're a player from Cuba or something. I mean, you didn't you sign Puig?
Yeah.
I mean, he had to come from Cuba. What a mercurial career he had. Ned, we'll let you go, but Buster, one last one on Buster.
Yeah.
What do you think of what did you think when Buster was named GM? And now that you've been able to kind of watch it a little bit from afar, I know you know Buster and have talked to him before, but what did you think at the time? Do you have different feelings now that you've seen him kind of acting in the role a little bit?
Well, I think it'd be tougher to hire somebody who wasn't more of a giant than Buster Posey. Learning curve. I mean, he was a catcher, obviously a great catcher, Hall of Fame catcher. So, understanding personalities, understanding what it takes to be successful, he knows. Doesn't mean there's not a learning curve. I'm sure there's days where he goes, where'd the day go? He might have been there from 7 in the morning and it's 8 o'clock at night and it's the middle of winter and it's like, where did the day go? Right. And so the learning curve will be there for a while. I mean, I've been in the game 40 some years. I'm still learning. So somebody that looked at it from a different viewpoint, from on the field, from a championship player caliber, sees it different. And with each passing week, month, I think he's going to get better and better at what he does. And I think he starts at a great place. You know where his heart is at. And you know that this isn't a job that he needed to have for his resume, right? If I don't become the president of baseball operations of a team, the Giants, my career has been mediocre. No, he didn't need any of this. But that he wanted it as bad as he's wanted it, and is going to do what he can do to bring the franchise back to a destination and a team that's got a chance to compete on an everyday basis, every year basis. It says a lot. Most people wouldn't want to get into this at that stage of life, especially with a young family, which he has. Because
is the key to the job to make sure that your phone's always charged?
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, did you have a backup charger? Did you ever lose connection in a big deal where you're losing juice and you're like sitting there going, I got 2 bars. All right. Well, I got 2 bars left. Are we going to make this deal or not?
No doubt. Many times. One of the ones that sticks out, as you mentioned, that I hadn't thought of it for a while. I'm guessing we have a lot of Giant fans watching this show. And many of them in the Scottsdale.
2,000 of them.
So they probably remember Don and Charlie's.
Yeah, in Scottsdale.
Right? Thank. Mine just died. Well, hopefully you're still listening to the show somehow. But so I've known Don for a long, long time, and I'm working on a deal. I come down to watch our rookie league team, and I'm working on a deal with Miami for Hanley Ramirez. And I'm calling our scouts. I'm on the phone all day. And it's like 6 o'clock, and I'm on my way to Salt River Fields to watch our rookie league team play.
Right?
And I look at my phone, and it's got like 5% left, and it's like 6 o'clock. I've got no chance. So I go into Don and Charlie's before I go to the game, and I'm sitting there talking to Don, and I go, I got to ask you a weird question. He goes, what's that? I says, would you have a charger for this phone? And he goes, I don't have that type of phone. And I says, well, I gotta find a child. I gotta go to a store or something. And he says, "Let me go ask." So he went through the bar to find somebody who had the cell phone. He took my phone, went in, and said, "Anybody got a phone like this and would have a charger in their car or on their person?" And he found somebody that had a charger. So he said, "Give me," he said, "I got you taken care of. Enjoy your meal, and I'll see you in a half hour." And so he charged it up. And I went to the game and was still talking to, I think Mike Hill was in charge of the Marlins at that point. And, talking to Mike off and on. And I kept going back to my car because, you never know who's sitting around, especially in a small environment like a rookie league game. You got basically bleachers. It's like a high school situation in some cases. And so I kept walking by Louis Gonzalez. Okay, who I had for 1 year.
Former Diamondback.
Yes.
Hero of the 2001 World Series.
Exactly. And he's working for the Diamondbacks. And he's watching me. And I say hello to him on my way in. We talk for a couple of minutes. I go sit down. I'm getting a call. I got to walk back out. I'm walking back and forth. And he looks at me about the 5th or 6th time. He goes, are you going to tell me, or do I have to read about it like everybody else? And I looked at him, I said, you're going to have to read about it because I don't work with you.
That's awesome.
And that night we made the deal for Hanley.
Wow.
I traded the toughest player I ever had to trade, the one that broke my heart to trade, Nathan Eovaldi.
What a pitcher, too. What a pitcher.
I love Nathan Eovaldi. They weren't saying yes to anything that didn't include Nathan Eovaldi.
They were smart. Two supers, and then we're out of here. Fuji Simeon says, Larry, I just left Danny's NorCal Sports Network because they're talking about the upcoming Bruce Mahoney game at Chase, LOLSI or SH on at Dan's. Well, go Cats, get them Cats, go get them Cats. I'm an SI guy all the way. That's all, that's all I got to say about that. And I understand people who went to SH. Who was called the people who didn't get into SI. And Clarence Beeks said member for 31 months. He said, Kate Upton, bro. There we go. Kate Upton's husband is now a Giant. Ned, great to see you, man. Happy New Year. We're going to talk more baseball this year. I'm waiting for the Giants to do something that actually doesn't bore me. And this one qualified, so I'm glad that we connected. Thank you very much, sir, for jumping on.
You're welcome.
And we will hopefully do this again in the next, maybe in 10 days from now when they sign Pete Alonso. I'll get you back.
I'll talk to you. Thank you.
Good to see
you.
Thanks, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Can't